One way we can look very carefully at the impact that the private equity model of ownership has on portfolio companies is to use a very convenient model which is shown in the table overlaid on the screen. And this is a 6-point model which can easily be used to understand more clearly why private equity as an ownership results in stronger companies. So what we have in this table is we have 6 factors, which are ownership concentration, which means how concentrated is the ownership. If the ownership is more concentrated, it has more influence. So typically private equity funds are going to have stakes in companies which are going to be something between 25 and 100%. Most typically the major minority, like for example 40% or so. Then we have ownership rationality. The private equity fund manager is a rational economic actor, is a trained investment professional whose job is to improve and manage his investments according to rational criteria of value creation. We have ownership closeness. The job of the private equity fund manager is to, for example, sit on the board of the company or to get involved. So typically the fund managers who are doing their job will remain close to their portfolio companies. Fourthly, building value. The private equity fund manager is managing a fund and he will get his reward if the fund exits profitably. And you'll get a profitable exit if the value of the company increases. So your main agenda is to build value over a medium-term period, such as 3 to 6 to 7 years. Management incentives. This means that the desire of the fund management owner is to give management an incentive to build value and to improve the performance of the company, rather than having them working for flat salaries, hence the use of things like stock option programs and bonuses. And then finally, action and decisiveness. The private equity fund manager has a time horizon of 5-7 years, for example. It will vary according to the economic cycle, but he's got to get things done within that period. He can't wait for the next generation, for example. And so that leads to action and decisiveness in the decisions regarding the company. So if we take these 6 different factors, and the best way to understand them is let's compare them to 3 other models of ownership. The family-owned company, and there are many of these, for example, in Europe, in Germany or Italy, or in other countries, in other parts of the world. Family companies are very common as an economic model. We also have the model of a widely held quoted company, which you'll find very much in the sort of Anglo-American sphere, which is a public company. No one investor owns more than 2 or 3%. Most of the investors are institutional investors. And then we've got state-owned companies, and we'll find a lot of these in emerging markets and indeed in other parts of the world, where the company is owned by the state, either directly through some ministry or through an agency or some other kind of formal setup. So let's compare the 4 models of ownership. So let's start by looking at each factor and look at how they influence the different types of ownership. Ownership concentration. So in a PE-backed company, yes, the private equity fund will typically have a stake of 20%, 40% or majority. So there is an ownership concentration. In a family company, yes, there tends to also be ownership concentration in that the family, either one member or through several relatives, may have a major stake or total control of the company. A quoted widely held company, no, there is no concentration. No one investor will hold more than 2 or 3%. A state-owned company, yes, the company is owned 100% by the state, and so there is concentration. So it's yes, yes, no, and yes. Ownership rationality. Yes, the private equity owner is a rational economic operator. It's a trained investment officer. Family companies, it varies. Some of the family issues may spill over into the company, so the rationality is not always totally assured. A quoted widely held company, yes, there is ownership rationality. The owners of these companies will be insurance companies or pension funds who are going to be managed by fund managers who are more distant than the private equity manager, but are rational economic actors as well. A state-owned company, well, it will depend because we have politics, we have jobs coming into, we have unions. So again, is the state a rational economic actor? Not always. Ownership closeness. In the case of private equity companies, yes, the private equity owner will be on the board and may get involved in the company in different ways. In a family company, yes, as well. The family tends to be quite close. There may be family members in the management of the company. Widely held quoted company, no, the ownership is remote. It's institutional investors who don't have much interaction with the company except maybe to come once a year to shareholder meetings or come on, listen to a kind of guidance phone call. State-owned companies, again, no, it's not closed. The state is a remote owner. There's a ministry involved, but they're not involved day to day in the company's management. Or they may be on the board, but they tend to be political appointees without specific expertise in many cases. Building value, private equity company, yes, the fund manager needs to have his exit. Family company, no. Their managing tends to be for lifestyle or to leave it to the next generation. So that's not a priority. A quoted, widely held company, much less so. The price will go up and down with the economic cycle. And so that's something beyond the control of the management. So building value, it's yes and no. State-owned company, no, it's not about building value. It's about holding the company in their portfolio. Management incentives. Private equity companies, yes, the private equity owner is very much geared towards providing the management with incentives through stock options. Family company, no. Family companies tend to reward loyalty with management. I'm assuming managements are not family members, so non-family members in the management. They tend to look at loyalty rather than providing complicated stock option programs. Quoted, widely held companies, it will depend. A lot of the criticism was that a lot of the management bonuses were not so much performance related or related to the share price. So they had incentives, but they were not linked. And state-owned companies tend to be no, they tend to be on flat salaries. Action and decisiveness, private equity companies, it's a yes, because they're on the clock, they need to get their exit, they need to get things done to get their exit. Family company, no, they're looking maybe 10, 20 years ahead, there isn't the same decisiveness. Problems tend to linger longer. Quoted, widely held company, no, for the same reason. There is no one breathing down their necks, making them decide things. It might be done by circumstances like a financial crisis, but not as a natural predisposition of the management. And the state-owned companies, similarly, no, there is no action and decisiveness in state-owned companies. Now, all these 6 factors, if it's a yes, if it's a tick in the box yes, that's a good thing for the company's governance and for its value. So if we do the scorecard now, private equity-backed companies score 6 out of 6. Family companies would score 2 to 3 out of 6. A quoted, widely held company would score 2 to 3 out of 6. A state-owned company would score 1 to 2 out of 6. So the governance models of these 3 types, family company, quoted, widely held, and state-owned, are intrinsically weaker than the private equity-backed model. And that goes towards explaining why private equity companies can often, in general, tend to be successful. Of course, all this presupposes a good execution, and it's possible that you may have a family company which has people who are so good that it's much better managed than a private equity-backed company backed by a mediocre or failing fund manager. But all other things being equal, on average, the PE-backed model is definitely stronger.